Now that's what I call gold. The greatest hits, the biggest stars, solid gold classics. Doxodeo Midstream is hosting its very own barnyard, 5 and 12 September. Tickets now available.
This is Life is more than a sermon series. It's an invitation to pause, to reflect, and to have some honest conversations about life, about meaning, about faith, and what really matters when everything else is stripped away.
We're not offering quick fixes or easy solutions, but rather creating a space for real conversations and real stories, and a faith that offers something more than just surviving another week.
If you've ever felt that life is moving fast and you are getting lost in the pace of it all, if you've ever experienced life as a bystander as it passes you by, if you've been asking why Christianity or why God, or if you've just been thirsty for something more, then this is for you.
So bring your doubts, bring your questions, bring your hopes, because this isn't about having it all figured out. It's about starting the conversation and discovering that maybe life is more than what we thought it was.
This is life, and it's worth talking about.
Well, good morning. It is our second week of 40 days, and I'm so glad that everybody is with us on this journey. If you haven't been on this journey with us, last week we started off with the question, is there more to life? And hopefully, if you've invested or if you haven't please go and watch the videos of last week and start having the conversation with your groups about it. We came to the conclusion that more that we're talking about is not a place or a thing or a set of circumstances. We realized that more is a person, Jesus Christ. Amen? That is what we realized. And that leads us to today's question. The most fundamental one leading from that is, who is Jesus then? Who is Jesus and why did he come? And I think it's a very broad question, right? I mean, I can stand here for hours and talk to you about who is Jesus, but we all have a roast in the oven, right? I'm already hungry. But that's not a question just for Bible study groups or for theological students. It's a question, I believe, that is for every single one, whether you're 15 or you're 85, whether you've been a Christian your whole life, or this is literally the first time that you've been in church ever. It's a question that I think is very valuable for each and every one of us to answer. Luckily, the man himself was a great communicator, and he spoke a little bit about himself in the Bible, and he gives us insight into who he is, but it's loaded stuff. So read with me and then we'll unpack it a bit. In John 14 verse 6, Jesus answers and he says, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I am the way and the truth and the life. The first thing you notice when he says this is the thing that he doesn't say. Jesus doesn't say that I will show you the way, or I will teach you the truth of everything, or I will give you a 10-step plan on how to live life fully. Because that's sometimes what we want. No, what he's saying is, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. When he says he is the way, he's telling us that he is the path through which we can have a living and a real relationship with God. He's not just going to guide us or point us in the right direction. He is the way itself. And when Jesus says he is the truth, it means he gives us the full, undistorted revelation of who God is. Isn't that amazing? We can actually discover and know and understand God through Jesus. So thirdly, when he says he is the life, he's declaring that the true fulfillment in life can only be found in him. Last week we talked about that longing in our hearts, that yearning for something more. And what he's saying here is it can only be satisfied by the person of Jesus Christ. Today I want to focus on that second one, the truth. When Jesus says, I am the truth, when we talk about this truth, we can look at it in two different ways. And we're going to unpack that a little bit today. Firstly, we can look at the cold, hard facts. We can look at the history and the scriptures and the proof and all of the details, the hard lines, the black and the white. But there's another way of looking at it, and that is the second part, the relational part, the feeling part, the knowing part in your heart. The best way that I can describe it is to associate it with something that I am very, very fond of, and that is chocolate cake. And today, I've got chocolate cake right here. But this is not just any chocolate cake. This is the best chocolate cake in the world. Anybody want to challenge me on that? I can prove it to you. I can taste, and then I'll tell you it's the best chocolate cake in the world. And you're going to have to take my word for it. What I can offer you, though, is the recipe for that chocolate cake. I can give it to you. You can take it home, and you can read it, and you can memorize it, and you can even quote it in your sleep. And you can even go and take the ingredients and taste a bit of the sugar and the flour and the eggs and the butter and everything. But if you haven't baked it and tasted it, then you cannot also agree with me that that is the best chocolate cake in the world. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. Firstly, when we talk about Jesus, we can talk about the recipe. And I want to call somebody up. His name is Geef Heinz. Geef, would you please join us? He's going to talk specifically about that because I think that we need authority on the subject. And for those of you, can we give him a hand? Come on, Geef. Thank you. Take a seat. Now, while he's going to talk to us, I'm going to give him a piece of chocolate cake because I think he deserves it, and you'll agree with me just after this. But Geef is an advocate in our court of law, and he has a way with words. And I want to call upon him to talk to us about the facts, the figures, and the hard lines of the truth of Jesus. Geef, there we go.
Yeah, thank you, Vanwouw. I'm a little bit worried. The English-speaking judges, in my experience, are the most difficult ones. but let me try. Whenever we prepare an argument for court, we need to look at the different ways in which best to do so. And one of the easiest ways to present an argument or to prepare an argument to convince a judge is to go to the facts that are common cause. Because once you rely on common cause facts to back up your argument, then half of the job is done. There's no dispute about the facts. The facts are not in dispute, and it's undeniable, and it's objective facts. So that's one of the go-to techniques that we employ. A second technique that we would employ is to go to science. Science is universally accepted throughout the world, so if you back up your argument with science, then you're also halfway there. And then another technique that we often apply and employ in presenting an argument and preparing an argument is we look at our argument and we look at any possible counter-argument that may be raised against our argument. And then you weigh it up whilst preparing. And when you find that the counter-arguments are weaker and they weigh less, then you know that your argument will come out on top. So utilizing those three techniques, I'm going to run a few facts past you through which we can prove that the Bible is authentic, that it's in existence, that it's real, and that we can rely on it. So we all know about the theory of supply and demand. Now, a common cause fact that can't be disputed and that's objectively accepted is that the Bible is the best seller of all times. There's never been a book in the whole world that has sold so many copies other than the Bible. So they say that it's about between 5 billion and 7 billion copies of the Bible have been sold.
Wow.
Now that's supply and demand, ladies and gentlemen. You look at the figures and you just see that there's a huge demand for the book. And we know as humans that we don't demand anything that is not true. We don't demand a product that we can't rely upon. We don't demand a product that's not good. So there's a fact on which we can rely to prove the Bible and its existence, and that we can rely on it as a product. Another fact that goes hand in hand with that is that the largest religion presently in the world, and these are 2023 figures, is Christianity. There's 2.3 billion people in the world that consider themselves Christians, and that accounts for 33% of the world's population. Now, majority rules. We all know that we vote in governments right across the world on the basis of majority rules. So there's another fact that we can rely upon and say the majority of the religious population of the world subscribes to the Bible. And therefore, when we are presenting this argument in a court, we would say that look at what the majority believes. And the majority believes in the Bible. And there's another fact that we can easily rely upon to prove not only the authenticity of the Bible, but also its existence. Now, there's a problem potentially with that because we know from literature that the Bible has been translated approximately 2,900 times into different languages. 2,900 different languages. I didn't even know that there were that many. Apparently, there's 7,000 different languages. So our opponents would say that, look, your original text was not preserved, because if you translate something 2,900 times, then chances are that the original text became corrupted and that it's not available anymore, and therefore you can't rely on the authenticity of the Bible. But there's actually a science technique that is commonly applied throughout the world, and it's accepted throughout the world, and we call that textual criticism. Now, how that works, Vanwouw, is you take the date on which the original letter was created or written, and then you take the first time that it was republished, and you count the years in between. And the more time that has passed since the original has been authored, the more worried we become, because we say, look, if the republication was only 1,000 years after the original was created, then who told the republisher what the original was? So logically, you will become worried the longer or the more time that has passed since it was first authored. And then we also look at how many copies are getting republished initially, because if there's only 5, it's easy to manipulate the first 5 copies and to make sure that they all read exactly the same. But if there's hundreds of copies that are republished, then chances are that they won't all read exactly the same. And if they don't read exactly the same, then we know, okay, there's a problem. The original text was not preserved. Now, what is commonly accepted on this scientific manner in looking at text, we find one example would be Julius Caesar's work on the Gallic Wars. That's wars that he participated in himself, and he kept a diary when he was busy fighting these wars, and it's against the present-day France, England, Belgium, Switzerland. So the current Europe, he was fighting that wars against them. And he kept a diary, and those wars were fought between 58 to 50 before Christ. And the republication only took place some 950 years later. And there's only 10 copies of those original republications. But science has concluded that we can accept that the republication over all those years is exactly the same than what he first authored in his diary. So that's the benchmark. Utilizing that benchmark, scientific benchmark, utilizing that benchmark and that test, if we look at the New Testament, it was first authored between 40 and 100 years after Christ. And approximately 170 to 350 years passed before we got the first republications, which is significantly less than the 950 in the case of Julius Caesar. So there already we are on a good wicket. But if we then go and look at the volumes of republication, in the Greek text, there was the initial republications amounted to 5,300. The Latin republication amounted to 9,000 copies, 10,000 copies. In other languages, 9,300 copies. So the volumes are vastly better than that pertaining to Julius Caesar's work. And when science had a look at all those copies, they found that the text was preserved. So the text correlates between those different copies in the different languages, and therefore we can rest assured that the Bible that we read today, the meaning of the words were preserved in the Bible that you and me reads today. And that's a huge fact in support of the authenticity of the Bible. Lastly, we all know that the Bible is about Jesus Christ. The Old Testament tells us that he's coming. The New Testament tells us that he has come, about his life on earth and how he died. And it is commonly accepted that there was a person like Jesus Christ. But what is in dispute is not the fact that he existed and that he has walked the earth. What is in dispute is that he is the Son of God and that he was not just a mere mortal. That's what is in dispute. So our opponents would say that, look, fine, there's been this guy called Jesus Christ, but he's been a mere mortal. Now, one of the many arguments that we can present to you as the English-speaking judges are that, you know, in the Old Testament, there's been 300 prophecies about what Jesus would do once he comes to the earth. And it is accepted also in the historic literature that each and every one of those prophecies has become true. Now, how do our opponents explain that? The only explanation is that, look, by the age of 12, he had memorized all the prophecies, and then he made a tick list, and he went about it to tick each and every prophecy off. Now, that's the explanation for the 300 prophecies that has become true. But there's at least 2 of those prophecies that you can't manipulate. The first is, you can't manipulate his birth and where he was born if he wasn't the Son of God. That's the only way in which that prophecy can become true, if we accept that he is the Son of God. And our opponents don't have an answer for that. And similarly, one of the prophecies that has become true is the fact that he has died, how he has died, where he has died, under what circumstances he has died. It's impossible to manipulate that. And that, we say, is proof, because there's no answer to it, that he was really the Son of God. Now, Vanwouw, with those few arguments, and I'm operating under time constraints here, I would say that we have proved on a balance of probabilities that the Bible is authentic, we can trust in the Bible, and we can rely on it. The text and the meaning has stayed preserved.
Isn't that amazing? Huh? Well, that's the recipe. But have you tasted it? Can you share us a story or 1 or 2 stories of how you tasted it?
Yeah, thank you. For me, and I'm living in this world, this law world, and it's what I've been doing for 25 years, and it's all fact-driven, and it's all evidence-driven, and it's all proof-driven. But when it comes to my personal experience of Jesus Christ, I've had a personal encounter with him. I've been raised a Christian, and I've attended Sunday school since I've been a very young boy. But I had a personal encounter with him in 2007. I became severely ill, and in a hospital bed, I had a personal encounter with Jesus Christ. And from that day onwards, I required no proof. It was easy for me to believe like a child is believing. I don't need to search the facts. I don't need to look at the facts, even though that is what I as an individual do on an everyday basis. That is not necessary for me to look into any of these facts that I've shared with you this morning any longer, since I had that personal encounter with Jesus Christ. And it's like you said earlier, if I taste the cake, then I don't even need to know what the ingredients are to tell you that this is the best cake I've ever tasted. And it's like that. My personal experience with Jesus is like that. I just accept that he's my Savior and that he's part of my life.
Can we give Geef a hand? Isn't that amazing? I'm going to exchange for you this or that. Thank you so much. I think he deserves that slice of cake, right? Yeah. Thank you. Now take note, Geef, eating that cake comes with a clause. I consider you now my attorney at law. Thank you very much. The recipe and the taste. I think Tim Mackey puts it so well. He says the following: we often misunderstand the Bible as just a rule book. But the Bible is not just information, it's God's story, pointing us to the person of Jesus Christ. Isn't that amazing? It's pointing us to God. Just like that story, there's a bunch of people in the Bible that witnessed it firsthand. The disciples believed in Jesus as the Son of God before he even died, but as he died and as he rose again, they were unstoppable. They saw the empty tomb. They saw his hands, the holes in his hands, and over 500 people saw him alive. If it was a lie, all they had to do was just deny it. But they didn't. They gave their lives for this truth. We read in Acts 2 the following. Fellow Israelites, listen to this. Jesus of Nazareth was a man accredited by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs, which God did among you through him, as you yourselves know. This man was handed over to you by God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge, and you, with the help of wicked men, put him to death by nailing him to the cross. But God raised him from the dead, freeing him from the agony of death, because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him. Impossible. And because of that, death will not have the last word in our story as well. That is the recipe. That is the facts and the figures. But Jesus, just like in Geef's story, Jesus doesn't want to stay the recipe. Jesus doesn't want to stay the cold, hard facts. Jesus didn't come just to start a religion or to create rules or to give that 5 or 10 step plan for you to live a fulfilled life. No, he came to make the first move towards you. He came to make the first move towards reestablishing the relationship between us and God. Listen to Revelation 3 verse 20, how he puts it. He says the following: here I am, I stand at the door and I knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person and they with me. In other words, Jesus doesn't want to just come into your life. He wants to sit at your table. He wants to eat with you. He wants to share a meal with you. He wants to have relationship with you, not as a stranger, not as a distant guest, but as a friend. Romans 5 verse 8 says the following: but God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we were in the dumps, while we were completely opposite to what we're supposed to live and what he offers us, he came and he chose to die on the cross for us. Not when we had everything all put together, not when we were church ready, but when we were still far from him. That is what God came to do, to restore that relationship. Our world tells us you get what you work for. But God comes and he says, this is not how it works. I'm giving you what you could never earn. He gives us grace. You get what you don't deserve. And he gives us mercy. You don't get what you actually deserve. Jesus came, when he died on the cross, he paid that price in full for us. No discounts, no lay-bys. And he gave it to us, that gift, free of charge. That is who he is. And that is what he came to do. The band can come and join me. So I want to leave you with a question. Who is Jesus for you? Not your parents, not your spouse, not your favorite preacher, not the opinions of the people around you, or the opinions of news or any media outlet. Who is Jesus for you? Is he an historical figure? Or just a moral teacher? Or is he actually the way? The only way to the Father, to God? Is he the truth, the clearest picture of who God is that you will ever see? Is he the life, the only source of life that will never run dry? Here's the thing about it. He doesn't want to force his way into your life. As Revelation 3:20 says it, he knocks at the door and he's waiting for you to open up. Nicky Gumbel says the following: if Jesus really is who he says he is, knowing him is the most important thing you can do in your life. And today's invitation is simple. Would you not taste the cake? Trust the story. Listen to God knocking on your door and opening up your door and allow him in. To follow the one who is the way and the truth and the life. Because he has already chosen you. He's already chosen you and he's done everything possible, anything dreamed of. He died for you on the cross. And all you have to do is to open that door. We're going to respond to this by declaring his name. And I want to pray for us and then we can worship together. Lord, thank you so much that we can know through the recipe that you are God, that you are the Son of God, Jesus. That you lived, that you died, and that you rose again. But also that we can know by tasting the cake that we can have relationship with you. Lord, thank you that you've done everything and that we can only come and accept you and accept you as the way, the truth, and the life. We pray that in your wonderful name. Thank you. Come on, let's respond.